Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a world where your home isn't just, a physical address, but maybe a collection of digital tokens. So one day you could own a piece of a luxury apartment in Dubai, then maybe swap it for a share in a co-living space in Austin the next day. Sounds a bit like science fiction, right? Well, maybe not. You might be living something like it sooner than you think. Today, we're diving deep into a really mind-bending question. Is traditional home ownership actually on the brink of obsolescence? Is it going to be replaced by these sort of fluid, token-based, fractional living models, all driven by global mobility and, of course, the world of crypto investments? And crucially, what role does AI play in all this, especially something like Airbnb's personalization engine? How is that accelerating the shift? We got a fantastic stack of sources. You've given us articles, some great research, fascinating reports, covers everything from like the nitty-gritty of 5G and 6G and smart cities to global real estate trends, the whole crypto finance angle, and how platforms like Airbnb are evolving. Our mission here is to really pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge so you can get a handle on what's unfolding and how it might impact your future. As I was going through these, what genuinely grabbed me was this idea of almost a perfect storm brewing. You've got tech innovation, huge demographic shifts, new financial models, all converging to completely reimagine home. It feels like it's not just about where we live anymore, but maybe what living even means. I'm curious, what part of that convergence really stands out to you?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The real insight, I think, isn't just about, say, faster networks or these new ownership models on their own. It's when you put them together. They're not just changing how we live. They seem to be fundamentally challenging the actual definition of home. We're kind of shifting it potentially from a fixed physical thing to something more fluid, maybe a digital experience. And that's that synergistic pressure we're seeing. It suggests, like you said, not just a change in where people live, but maybe fundamentally how they inhabit the world.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. Okay, so let's kick things off maybe by understanding the foundational tech, the stuff literally building the future of our cities. Our sources paint this really vivid picture of how 5G and looking ahead, 6G networks are transforming urban landscapes. What are the key ways these techs are laying the groundwork for, well, drastically different living experiences, even down to the daily commute?
Well, 5G is already having a pretty significant impact right now. It's enabling real-time city services. So imagine ultra-fast, low-latency connections. These connections optimize traffic flows, allowing vehicles, streetlights, transit systems to communicate instantly. That can mean smoother commutes for you, definitely less time stuck in traffic jams. It also helps cities manage these dynamic smart grids, balancing energy use, integrating renewables more efficiently. That could potentially lower your energy bills. And it even enhances public safety. Think real-time video feeds for, say, predictive policing or faster emergency response. And a really powerful application of 5G right now is its support for digital twins.
Digital twins. Okay, can you unpack that a bit for us? What does that actually mean?
Sure, think of a digital twin as a fully functional, constantly updated virtual replica of your actual city, almost like a super sophisticated SimCity, but based on real-time data. So planners can run endless simulations, they can test the impact of a new traffic pattern, predict energy demand spikes, even plan for emergency evacuations, all before they actually build anything or before issues pop up in the real world. It's like predictive urban management on a whole new scale. Now, looking ahead, 6G is often described as the next generation impact. It's envisioned as this hyper-connected infrastructure. It would seamlessly integrate literally billions of IoT devices, Internet of Things devices. So everything from your smart thermostat and connected appliances at home to self-monitoring bridges or water pipes, all connected at an unprecedented scale. We're talking about ultra-low latency here, possibly below 1 millisecond. That kind of speed could enable things that sound like sci-fi now, like remote surgery, a doctor in one city operating precisely on someone miles away, or maybe truly immersive citywide augmented reality experiences. And critically, AI is expected to be embedded directly into 6G networks. That means automating city services at citywide, even regional levels, traffic, energy, you name it, making cities, theoretically, safer, more sustainable, and highly personalized.
It really does sound like something out of a futuristic novel, doesn't it? So if our cities become these incredibly intelligent, connected ecosystems, what does all that hyperconnectivity and automation actually mean for us, the people living there? How might our daily lives, from commuting to just managing our heating, be fundamentally changed by this sort of ubiquitous AI?
Well, this leads to a crucial point. As these cities get more efficient, more automated, they also encourage a certain type of living, perhaps. They become places where you expect highly responsive services, where the physical and digital worlds really start to merge. And this shifts the value proposition of where you live. It starts emphasizing access to this smart infrastructure, these services, maybe more than just the four walls of a traditional house. You're almost buying into an experience, an ecosystem, not just a structure.
Okay, so we've got this picture of intelligent cities evolving. But while the physical infrastructure changes, there's this other powerful force reshaping how we interact with, and maybe even own, pieces of those cities. Let's shift focus now to platforms like Airbnb, and specifically how their AI isn't just about booking a holiday rental anymore. Our sources really highlight how Airbnb's AI-powered personalization is actively reshaping urban housing demand. How is AI changing the game for both travelers and property owners?
Yeah, what's really compelling here is how Airbnb's AI acts almost like a precision matching engine. Imagine a personal travel agent who's studied your entire booking history, your wish lists, maybe even knows your general preferences, often before you consciously do. It analyzes your searches, your stated preferences, even the purpose of your trip to instantly show you what it deems ideal listings. And this hyper-personalized result, well, it naturally drives demand towards specific, desirable urban spots and certain property types, places with great amenities, flexible terms, unique designs. At the same time, their dynamic pricing AI is adjusting nightly rates constantly, in real time, based on demand, local events, what competitors are charging, all to maximize profits for the hosts. Now, here's the really profound insight, and it's a critical one we need to grasp. As hosts see these potentially higher returns from short-term rentals fueled by this AI, well, more homes get pulled away from the long-term rental market. This reduces the supply of regular long-term housing. And what happens then? Urban rents go up, home values can increase too, especially in tourist-heavy areas. Studies actually show this effect. Even small increases in Airbnb listings can fuel noticeable rises in rents and home prices in cities. So the app that was designed for finding a temporary place to stay is now a major player influencing long-term housing affordability for millions.
That's such a critical, yeah, classic double-edged sword, isn't it? The AI helps you find the perfect short-term spot, but potentially makes it harder to find an affordable long-term home. And I'm curious, does Airbnb's vision stop there with short-term stays? Or are they looking to expand into even more parts of our lives?
Oh, absolutely, not stopping there. The next evolution seems to be towards what they're calling a lifestyle ecosystem.
Hmm.
So Airbnb is moving way beyond just stays. They now offer Airbnb experiences, local tours, classes, that kind of thing. They're adding Airbnb services like in-home amenities, maybe concierge services. There are even talks about plans for on-demand car sharing, even roommate matching. They're apparently developing an AI concierge to help users plan, book, get recommendations across this whole ecosystem. And significantly, they're expanding into long-term and mid-term rentals too, targeting digital nomads, remote workers, acknowledging this whole live anywhere trend. Plus, their Airbnb-friendly apartments program encourages people in certain buildings to do part-time hosting. It further blurs those lines between purely residential and more transient living spaces.
Wow. So we could be looking at a platform that manages your living situation, your travel, maybe even parts of your social life, all knitted together by AI. What, for you, is the biggest takeaway from this really profound shift in Airbnb's strategy and its impact?
I think the key takeaway is that platforms like Airbnb, supercharged by AI, aren't just facilitating existing travel and living patterns, they're actively creating new ones. They're making a flexible, mobile, experience-focused lifestyle seem increasingly accessible, maybe even desirable. And that, in turn, puts immense pressure on traditional housing models. It forces cities to think differently, necessitating new urban planning to try and balance, economic vitality, community feel, and basic affordability. It's really about reshaping our expectations of what home and living can even mean in the 21st century.
That's a huge amount to think about just regarding how we interact with physical spaces. Okay, so if AI and smart cities are shaping where and how we live, let's talk about blockchain and crypto, because that seems poised to revolutionize how we own it. Our sources talk a lot about fluid, token-based fractional living. Can you break down what tokenized real estate and fractional ownership actually mean for someone, say a potential homeowner or investor? Maybe give us a clear analogy.
Sure. So at its core, asset tokenization is basically taking a real-world asset, let's say an apartment building, and converting its ownership rights into digital tokens on a secure blockchain. Think of each token like a tiny verifiable digital share certificate for that building. This means properties, even really expensive ones, can be broken down into many smaller tradable digital tokens. This enables what we call fractional ownership. So instead of needing millions to buy the whole building, maybe you could buy just a few tokens representing a small fraction of it. This democratizes access, right? It opens up real estate investment to more people. And it increases liquidity because these digital tokens are potentially much easier and faster to trade than, selling a whole property traditionally. This model can make prime properties anywhere in the world accessible to a much wider pool of investors. And this then enables what some call portable ownership and that fluid mobility we talked about. Imagine you're, say, a young professional. Maybe you don't want to be tied down to one city. With fractional ownership, maybe you could own tokens representing shares in a co-living space in Bali for the winter and shares in a shared apartment in Barcelona for the summer, all within the same digital wallet, perhaps. You could potentially move between them without the traditional hassles of buying, selling, or long leases. It's potentially a game changer for digital nomads, remote workers, offering access to high-quality places globally. Beyond individual ownership, you could even see communities using this to crowdfund local projects, maybe affordable housing, maybe a community center, collectively owning and governing these assets through token-based systems. And a key aspect here is the blockchain itself. It automates and secures transactions, potentially cutting out intermediaries like brokers or agents, which saves costs. It creates transparent, potentially borderless marketplaces with immutable records, meaning permanent, unchangeable records of who owns what and how it's used, that could drastically reduce fraud.
That vision of fluid, global ownership, it sounds incredibly appealing, almost utopian, especially if you value mobility. But let's play devil's advocate. What are the significant risks here? Or the practical hurdles we might be glossing over? What about regulations? Or even just the psychological need some people have to own, a solid piece of Earth, not just digital tokens?
That's a really crucial and fair challenge. The benefits seem clear, but yes, we absolutely have to weigh the financial pros and cons, especially this idea of renting plus crypto investment versus traditional home ownership. And crypto's volatility is, well, notorious. So for the renting plus crypto model, pros: huge mobility, low commitment. You free up capital that might otherwise be tied up in a down payment. You can potentially invest that capital in higher growth assets like crypto. Our sources do show crypto can dramatically outperform real estate, sometimes seeing 30–40% annual growth if prices surge. But, and it's a big but, that relies heavily on sustained high appreciation and requires a very high tolerance for risk. Plus, with renting, you have no maintenance headaches, and crypto offers high liquidity. It's generally easy to buy and sell quickly. The cons, though, are significant. Extreme volatility and high risk in crypto is the big one. Big gains are possible, yes, but so are equally dramatic losses, wipeouts even. Also, if you're renting, you face rising rents with no long-term cost certainty, and those rent payments don't build any equity for you. Now, flip side, traditional homeownership. It offers stability, tangibility. Property generally, historically, appreciates over the long term. You get leverage through mortgages, potential tax benefits. It can act as a hedge against inflation, and you might even get rental income. Fixed-rate mortgages offer payment predictability. The cons of owning: high upfront costs, down payments, closing fees, ongoing costs like maintenance, property taxes. Reduced flexibility selling is often slow and expensive. And there's market risk, too. Housing markets can stagnate or fall. We even see a sort of real-world experiment with this in El Salvador, right? They made Bitcoin legal tender. It attracted foreign crypto investors, high-net-worth individuals looking for new opportunities. This led to a surge in real estate demand there, reports of 15–45% appreciation, partly driven by tax incentives for residency if you invest 3 Bitcoin. But it also faces huge challenges from Bitcoin's inherent volatility and, reportedly, limited adoption among the local population for everyday use.
That's a really comprehensive breakdown of the trade-offs involved. It sounds complex. What, for you, is the sort of core tension here when you compare these two very different paths to having a home?
I think the core tension is squarely between stability and flexibility. It really boils down to that. Traditional homeownership offers that tangible security, a stable base. It's often favored by people who are more risk-averse or maybe value that predictability. But for those who prioritize global mobility, maybe want diversified investments with potentially higher upside and higher risk, and desire that fluid lifestyle, then the renting plus crypto model, or these tokenized ownership ideas, they present a compelling alternative. Albeit, yes, a higher risk one. It really becomes about aligning your living model with your desired lifestyle and your personal risk tolerance. It demands a very different mindset about what security even looks like.
Okay, so we've dissected the tech innovations, the financial shifts. But what about the people? And the places where all this is actually taking root, our sources emphasize how demographic shifts are fundamentally reshaping real estate. What are these major demographic drivers, And where globally are we seeing these new models of living really take hold?
All right, let's bring in the human element driving these changes. We see several really powerful demographic forces at play. Firstly, there's rapid urbanization happening, especially in emerging economies. Think places like India, Nigeria, Vietnam, Brazil. That's creating just massive demand for housing, both residential and commercial. Alongside that, you have a rising middle class in many of these regions who are eager for home ownership and investment opportunities. But crucially, in many developed and developing parts of the world, we're seeing millennials and Gen Z delaying traditional home ownership. They often prioritize affordability, quality of life, access to technology. This trend is boosting demand for rentals, flexible living arrangements, and maybe suburban housing that offers modern amenities. These pressures are creating global hotspots for growth and places where these new living models are emerging. The Asia Pacific region, for instance, is still the largest and fastest growing market, fueled by that urbanization and population growth, especially in China, India, Southeast Asia. The Middle East, particularly the GCC countries, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, is seeing tremendous growth. Driven by visionary government plans like Saudi Vision 2030, these huge mega projects like NEOM, they're spending massively on infrastructure, attracting global investors and high net worth individuals. Significantly, foreigners can now own property outright in major Saudi cities like Riyadh and Jeddah, which was a big change, opening things up. Focus there is often on mixed use communities, luxury properties, but also co living. In North America, the U.S. Sunbelt, Texas, Florida, Arizona continues to boom. Also, the Southeast, the Carolinas, Georgia, and even some affordable secondary cities in the Midwest, like Indianapolis or maybe Buffalo, are attracting strong job growth and migration. These are key investment areas. And these demographic shifts aren't just about location, they're also driving demand for specific types of property. More suburban growth, yes, but also more senior housing, multi generational living options, and these flexible mixed use projects, definitely including co living spaces.
It's really clear that these huge global movements are pushing for entirely new kinds of housing solutions just to accommodate a changing population with different needs and priorities. Given all that, what kind of properties do you think will really dominate in these growing markets as we look ahead?
Yeah, that brings up a vital point about the actual buildings. We'll likely see a significant focus on smart connected homes, homes with built in automation, IoT integration, often maybe with smaller individual footprints, but more emphasis on shared community spaces, shared amenities, and definitely wellness oriented features. Health and well being are big selling points now. There's also going to be a strong, continuing emphasis on green building, energy efficient developments, partly driven by stricter environmental regulations, but also by consumer preference. People want sustainable living. Co living and mixed use properties designed specifically for flexibility and fostering community seem set to really transform urban landscapes, especially with the ongoing rise of remote and hybrid work. And critically, our sources suggest that by around 2035, maybe nearly 30% of new urban developments might need to focus on affordable housing, as governments increasingly target accessibility and social impact. That could be a powerful shift if it happens.
So let's try and wrap this up. What does this all mean for you listening right now? We've journeyed through how 5G and 6G are creating these hyper-intelligent smart cities, how Airbnb's AI is personalizing travel but also reshaping housing markets, how blockchain is introducing fluid, fractional ownership models, and how huge global demographic shifts are driving demand for these new ways of living in hotspots worldwide. It's a truly fascinating and maybe a little overwhelming look at a rapidly changing landscape. The idea of the traditional single-family home, it might not vanish entirely, probably not. But it certainly looks like it won't be the only dominant option anymore, especially for people who prioritize mobility, experience, and maybe those alternative investment paths. It really does feel like a brave new world for what we call home.
Precisely. I think that's the right way to frame it. The traditional homeownership model, it retains its appeal, absolutely, especially for tangible stability. But it's definitely being challenged, seriously challenged by these alternatives that offer greater flexibility, often lower entry barriers financially, and different kinds of diversification opportunities. So the question probably isn't total obsolescence, but rather a significant diversification of how we live and how we invest in where we live. We seem to be moving towards a future where home might be less about a single fixed address and more about an adaptive, digitally integrated lifestyle. And this leads us, I think, to a crucial thought for each of us. As technology creates these hyper-connected, potentially fractionalized, AI-driven possibilities for living, what actually defines home for you? Is it still that tangible property, that piece of land? Or is it becoming more about the ultimate freedom of fluid global living and investment?